Hello, Miss Steele here. So this week we are talking about texture, and we're going to be making our own flowers inspired by Vincent van Gogh. Got a little folded. Using a few different textures. We're going to make textures for our wood grain. We're going to make some textures on our pot, on our flowers. So I'm going to set this aside so we can go over what we need for this project. You want one piece of paper for your background. So I have blue. You want another piece of colored paper different than your background. And this is going to end up being my pot. Then I'm going to put my flowers in. And then I have a white paper, and this is what I'm going to use for my flowers and my table. So I also have scissors and glue because we're going to be cutting and gluing. You want a pencil and an eraser, and then you want something to color in with. So I have some markers and some crowns. You can use what you have. I'm going to move this out of the way, and we're going to start with our table. So for our table, we're going to take our paper and we are going to actually fold it up a little bit because we want to get a straight line. You can make your table a little bit bigger if you want, a little bit smaller. I'm going to make mine about 1/3 of my paper. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold this over, and I'm going to make for sure the lines are even and the edges match up, and then I'm going to fold it. And then whenever I unfold it, I now have this line that I can cut on that is nice and straight. So I can use this for my table and know that my line's not going to be crooked. And what we're going to do on this is we're going to make some wood grain texture. We're going to make some implied texture. So we're going to make it look like it has wood grain, even though it doesn't. I'm going to grab a brown marker so I can start adding in the details for this texture. What I like to do is I like to start out with some bumpy sort of ovals, some ovals that have kind of a bumpy line to it, a curvy line. And I throw in a few of those here and there. You can even add some in on the inside like this. So that's how I like to start my wood grain, is some bumpy ovals. And then I start going in. And I start adding in some wavy lines like that. Kind of going around these bumpy circles that I created. I try to make them a few different lengths. And then I just start filling it in with these kind of wavy, sort of bumpy lines. Maybe bringing some around. And we're creating a fake textural, I guess it's not fake, it's a real implied texture of wood grain, like that. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to grab a brown crown so I can color on top of this to make it all brown. So I'm going to get this all colored in, and then we will glue it down so we can move on to our next step. So I'm going to keep coloring this, and I will be right back. Maybe I'll turn this brightness down a little bit too so you can see it. There we go. Got this colored in. What I'm doing is I'm using another brown crown. This one's a little bit warmer of a color. And I'm going through and I'm just following along a few of those marker lines just to give it a little more detail. So once I'm done with this, I'm going to glue it at the bottom of my background, and it's going to be my table that I'm going to set my flower pot onto. So I'm finishing this up just like that. So now I'm going to grab my background paper, and I'm going to glue this right on the bottom. So I have a table for my flowers to sit on. So remembering that a dot is a lot, I'm just going to add a few dots of glue around the outer edge. If you add too much glue, it'll make your project all gluey and sticky and messy. So I try not to add too much glue, just what we need. Unfortunately, glue does not work like magic. It wants a little bit of help from you. So make for sure to press down nice and hard so it can get stuck on there, just like that. I'm going to set this aside now, and we're going to start working on our pot. I have this piece of paper, and what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to fold it in half long ways. So I'm going to make for sure my corners match up, And then I'm going to press down. In doing this, I'm going to draw half of my pot, cut it out, and it's going to make both of the sides the same. You can make the shape of your pot different than mine if you want, but I think I'm going to add a straight line on the top here, and I'm going to make it rounded out, and then I'm going to round it out on the bottom here, bring it right up to the top, and I think I'm going to make it dip in a little bit like this. And now I'm going to cut it out. Why it's still folded, so I can get it to look the same on both sides. So I folded it, and now I'm cutting it out why it's still folded, and I will show you why in just a second. And now it looks the same on both sides. What I'm going to do is I'm going to color this in. You can decorate your pot kind of how you want. You want to try to add some color to it, some texture to it. I think I'm going to go in and add some nice lines around the bottom right here, kind of following the shape of my pot. Just right here on the side to add in some shading. You could use a different color if you wanted. But I'm adding it along this side, like this. So I'm adding some shading to my pot, which just means I'm making it almost look like it has a shadow on it. I'm using kind of rough, sort of crazy strokes. I'm not making for sure it looks super perfect because I want it to have that texture like that. I think I'm also going to go in with a red right along the bottom here. And I'm going to color in this bottom part too. Like that. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another color. Maybe I'll just use this red. And I'm going to start adding in just some lines throughout, just so I can give this some more detail, some more texture. So if you wanted to decorate yours with like a pattern, you could. I'm just adding in some lines going down, because everything else has so much detail. I don't want to leave this out. I want it to look nice like everything else too. So I'm just adding some nice straight lines like that. So now I'm going to glue this onto my background, and then we can make our flowers. So remembering that a dot is a lot, not trying to use too much glue. I'm going to get this glued down right here. Ooh, maybe I'll move it down a little bit so my flowers can fit a little bit better. So now I have my floor in my pot. What I can do with this is I can draw my sunflowers. What I like to do to start my sunflowers is I like to start out with some circles. I'm actually going to flip this over. I like to start out with some circles. You don't want it right up against the edge because you want to be able to fit in your petals. So now I have my circles. I'm going to start adding in my petals. To do this, I add one curved line and then another curved line. And I do that going all the way around my sunflower. So I'm going to keep adding on my petals to these, and then we'll walk through what we need to add some texture to these. So I'm going to keep adding my petals, and I will be right back. I'm going to show you one more time. One curved line, and then another curved line. Sunflowers definitely don't have perfect petals, so yours don't have to be perfect either. We want to make this look like a sunflower. Sunflowers actually have a bunch of dots in the middle. That's where the sunflower seeds go. So I'm going to use my brown marker to make a bunch of dots in the center here to help with our texture. So I'm going to get these all dotted up, and then we'll move on to our next step to add some texture to our sunflowers. But our first one is using a dark brown to add a bunch of dots in the center of our flower. So I'm going to keep going with this, and then we'll talk about what we can do for the petals. I'm going to get these all dotted in, and then I'm going to color in brown in the background, and then we will move on to our sunflowers petals. All right, now for my sunflower details, I grabbed a few things. I grabbed a yellow marker, cream, I grabbed a brown crown, and of course a yellow crown. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to start by adding some lines into my sunflower petals, using my cream and my yellow to kind of help with the petals texture. So I'm kind of following along. I had 1, 2, and then 3 in the middle. And then I'm going to do the same with my yellow, like this. Just adding in some curved lines. And then I'm going to go back with my tan and I'm going to add in some more. And then once I've added in some lines, I'm going to go back and color this all in yellow. And then that'll help add some texture to my petals. So they're not just yellow, they have all of those details in there. So you can use a cream color or a brown or a yellow to start out by adding in some lines on here to kind of help the petals look like they have more texture. And then I'm going to go back with my brown crown and add those in and then finish by coloring them in yellow. So I'm going to get this done to all of my petals and then I'm going to get this cut out so we can get them put onto our background. So I use my cream marker and my brown crown and my yellow marker to add in some lines like what you see here, and then I'm using a yellow color to go back in and color on top of those lines. But it adds a lot more texture to them to make them look a lot more realistic. I'm going to get these all colored in and cut out, and then we're going to put it on our background that we've been working on. Alright, so I got my sunflowers all colored in and cut out. Now I'm going to use a green marker, and I'm going to add the 2 lines where I want my sunflowers to go. So these are going to be like the stems coming out of my pot. And then all I have left to do is glue these down. So I'm going to add a dot of glue on each side. And then I am going to take these and squish them on here so I can get them all glued down. Just like that. If I wanted to go back, I could glue down the petals, or I could even curl them up to give them more texture. So you can decide which one you would rather do. But I think it's fun to take them and kind of curl them up on the edges like this to kind of make them pop out and give them more of like a 3D sort of texture, if you can see. And that is it. I can't wait to see how your flowers come out. And I will see you all next time. Have a wonderful rest of your morning, your evening, your afternoon, whenever you're watching this. Bye.